Now we actually have multiple companies here. So I have a robotic division, which is the selling arm. I also have a manufacturing division for this, because what we're finding more and more now is we have companies with sales arms and manufacturing arms. We've got a company at the moment we're just doing, they have one sales arm, they have 5 manufacturing arms, all feed the single sales arm. Now traditionally they've tried to load forecasts into these different companies and they can't keep track of them and blah 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 blah. So what we've done is we've actually put in intercompany. So and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how the intercompany works inside of F&O. So first one we're going to do here is we're going to go to release products, because that is by far the easiest way to see all the transactions. So going into release products, we can see here this is the item that Tom has just gone and sold. Now this particular item, if I go into net requirements, I can very quickly see is a purchased item. So they are purchasing this. They will, well, if we had no stock, they would purchase this. Obviously Tom's company's got lots of money because he can obviously hold lots of stock. So what we've got here is as the sales orders come in, it depletes the stock and so on. So what we're going to do now is that in the manufacturing companies, we manufacture claws for the robots. We also manufacture 3-pronged fingers and 2-pronged fingers. Now, the 2-pronged is a product master, which means we are giving them an option of colours. Same SKU, different colours. Right, so this is just to show off the configuration. So if I went into here and I go into net requirements for this, what I can see here is against the black one, I have a planned purchase order, which is matching up with demand forecast. If I pull this here down, you see I've also got a demand forecast in there for some blue ones. So all I've got demand for is the blue and black, because notice the other colours aren't sharing there. Now I just hop out of that one there and I go to something a little bit more complicated. I go into this one here, which is a claw. We go into net requirements. And what I can see here is that I can see from NDC in Melbourne, I have a requirements profile, and what I have is I have demand forecast, multiple demand forecasts, which are then producing planned purchase orders for me. Now this planned purchase order, when I click into it, you actually see it's actually the vendor for this is the manufacturing company. So if I scroll down here, I can see a demand forecast, and the vendor is Flux One, which is the manufacturing company. So on this side, it looks completely normal. And if I just go over to the view here, what I can do from this point here is I can then also do an explosion on this item. So when I'm looking at a planned order, I can see what its demand is. So I can see this particular planned purchase order is fulfilling a demand forecast. If I had sales orders, it would also peg to those sales orders. Okay, nice and basic. If I go back to here. Now also from here, I can also go into inventory management, and I'm interested in what stock there is available in my other companies. So I can go into here and I can go inventory on hand, and as you can see I have 0 inventory on hand. Because it is an intercompany, I can click into the intercompany and it will immediately tell me which companies, what warehouse, physical stock, and more importantly the available stock. Right the way from one screen. So if I've got this particular product in multiple companies, I could see all my stock around the whole world. Okay, so back out of here. So any of this demand that flows through, and here's the last item here, and if I go into engineering on plan onto this one here and we go to net requirements again, what we're going to see here is that we've actually got a whole lot of forecasts. This is probably one of the most popular items, and as you can see I've got a demand forecast. My first order here is I have a planned order. It's also showing me a delay message. Now I've only got delay messages turned on here. What a delay message does is it will actually give me notification that product and supply aren't lined up, and it will tell me the numbers of delays. As you can see, this one is telling me I need to move my demand forecast out, or I need to move my planned purchase order in by a day. Okay, and as you can see there, I've got 1 minimum stock, and as you can see, my goal is always to hit the 1 minimum stock. Okay, so this is all pretty basic stuff as far as MRP is concerned, but it just shows the power of MRP, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flick over to the manufacturing company. Now inside the manufacturing company, I'll just flick back to there, get hold of that item number, which is the 49 ending in 436. I go over to here and I look up this, go to release products. Okay, and if I look down here, I can see there it is there. Same part number, right, because we have a global part number. You can have different item numbers by company. That doesn't match your global part number if that's the way you actually want to go. We have a company that makes coffee machines all around the world. They have a single global part number, but they have individual item numbers in each company because that is their registered electrical number by country. But when they want to do global reporting, they can actually have a look and see how many of this SKU am I actually selling worldwide, regardless of what power source is against it. Okay, so from here, if I go into net requirements again, what we're going to see here is that this particular company can see all the intercompany demand coming through. Right, so instead of you trying to load in forecast to work out what each company is actually going to get, what it does is it will actually throw through the equivalent to a planned sales order, because that's effectively what this intercompany demand is. Right? Which means any changes inside of the selling company immediately reflects through to the manufacturing company. Now, standard rules would probably apply. If they're putting in a forecast, you've probably got a lockdown period, so they can't change the forecast the day before it's supposed to go out, as an example. Okay, so I go out there, and then if I go to this one here, and I look at net requirements, and as you may remember, we had a couple of transfer orders going through to here. Now, what we've got here is that when I look in the other company, I can see multiple colours now. And the reason why I can see multiple colours is that we actually sell this to other. This one here is an intercompany sales order, because you can see by the flux in the beginning of it. And there is our planned intercompany orders, and it's going to give me production orders, one to supply the sales order, one to supply the production order. Right? This is currently under MTO, which means it's a one-to-one relationship. If I then go to the blue one, what we're seeing here is we are seeing a production order, but that production order is picking up multiple demands. So it's not just picking up a one-to-one relationship. Again, this is all to do with the coverage groups. So MRP is what the logic that you would normally apply as a planner. Chuck it in the system. You can't get rid of your planners. Don't ever make that mistake. This is an advanced tool for an advanced planner. It's not a tool to replace a planner. Right? But it gives them all the levers they need to pull to balance your supply and demand, which means technically you hold the lowest stock value possible. Okay, and then we've got our third one down here, and if we look at this one here, again, completely different mechanism. This one here is getting sold a lot to other people, other companies as well. We've also got demand forecast, so we're actually forecasting for our demand internally. We've also got planned intercompany demand. So this is effectively throwing everything we've got at it. All make sense? Okay, so from there, MRP's now run. So as a planner, what do I do with all that information? So I have a whole lot of information. Now I've got to work out what I'm going to do with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flick over to a master planning module. So master planning is where MRP runs. And if I go into here, what I can see inside of here is I can actually see all my demand. So first thing I can see here is intercompany supply and demand. This will give me a view of all my intercompany transactions that are about to take place. All the requirement dates required, the warehouses it's going to draw on, the voucher numbers that they're connected to, and the customers they're going to. Right, so I've effectively now got a full view of all my intercompany directly from here. Back from here, the other thing I also see from here, if I didn't click out of it, is if I go into here and I have a look at all planned orders. So the output of MRP on a daily basis is planned orders. It will give me planned purchase orders, planned transfer orders, planned production orders. The first thing people usually say the moment they open up this screen is, how the hell am I supposed to take care of this? Look at all those records. A planner doesn't need to take care of all those records. A planner has a fixed period of time that they work in, some sort of horizon. So this one here, as you can see, I can see I've got orders in here from the 16th, 30th, and so on. So it's given me the delivery date. The offset between the order date and the delivery date is the lead time. From here too, we can also see delays. So this one here, I can see immediately I have a delay. It's required on the 13th. Last time MRP run was the 16th, so it immediately said, well, my delivery date is going to be the 16th, so I need to move it. Right, so I have a requested date the 13th. It's telling me here I'm going to be 3 days late. Now, since that's going back in time, there's no way in the world I can fix that. So I would have to then ring up the customer or the demand and find out what it is, and then go and take care of that. So from here, I can actually go up into here and I can go view. Again, we go to the explosion. When I'm looking at the explosion, it's telling me this is actually related to a sales order. From that sales order, I could then click directly in the sales order. One system, fully integrated. Straight away, it's going to open up the sales order. I can now make any phone calls that I need to make. So you can see anything from anywhere inside one of these systems once you learn how to look. Okay, so back out of there. So if I go into here, okay, you can also set up different views as you see. Right now I'm using a My View. I could also filter this any way I wanted to and actually save that as a view as well. So at the moment it's got purchase orders and production orders. If I was just interested in just the production orders, I could go into here, see, put a filter on. Help if I got the P as well. Right, so now all I'm looking at is planned production orders sorted by date. I can then very quickly go into here, save this as a view. Pin it as my default, so every time I open it, it's always going to open that, and I'm only interested in applying it to the current company. So now, as a planner, I would come into here, as a production planner, I could come in here and I could just go straight away to my planned production orders. And when I look down here, I can see I've got a number of planned production orders. First thing I do is I run my eyes over the numbers. I look at this one here and say 55, that's an odd number. It doesn't quite seem right. And to begin with, when you first introduce an ERP system, these numbers are a bit all over the place. The art of it when you first go live is to actually go through these and work out how the numbers should actually be right. So if I go into here and I have a look at this, again, I can go view, I can go explosion. A couple of things this is going to show me. It's going to show me this is the item I require, 55 of them. I've got these on hand, I've got no other purchasing material. So this may be a make to order item. If this was a make to order item, I'd look at this and I'd say, well, what's the actual demand coming from? So I can turn around and look up and say, okay, so it's intercompany demand for 58. Right, I'm going to make 55, which tells me there's 2 on hand. So I would then go back down again. Okay, then so if this was a true make to order environment, I could then take this particular production order. I can go into planned orders. This is now listing all the planned purchase orders or any transfers or any planned production orders for this item. I can then very quickly highlight the whole lot. I don't want to purchase that one there. I could then go firm, and this would now create me purchase orders for all the other components. Now, because I'm doing that, I would probably also change that to standard marking. So what it's going to do is it will not only create purchase orders for me, it will cross-reference it with the production order that relates to. So when the materials come in, I try and issue it to another job, it's going to tell me to bugger off, unless I remove the marking. And removing the marking is the right real pain in the ass. So it was designed that way on purpose. Okay, so I'm not going to firm that up. I probably could have, since this is the last one on the Roadshow. Okay, so back from there, I can also have a look at a Gantt chart from here too. A lot of people don't realise this. There is actually a Gantt chart on here. And what this will show me is this will show me the production time. It will also show me the purchase lead time, and this would look a lot more impressive if I'd actually put some decent lead times in here. But this would actually show me the lead time, which immediately identifies your problem child. So if I had one of these and it was way back here somewhere, immediately I would know that's my problem child, solve that, the rest of it all comes right. So Gantt charts are actually quite handy for this sort of visual analysis of what's actually happening with your products. Okay, so I get out of here. All right, so I've got some planned orders here, and what I'm going to do is I will actually firm up some of these planned orders. So when you say optimization with Copilot, you're talking about sequencing?
Yeah, and balancing that, balancing the orders versus production.
So right now there isn't, but we are actually, in fact you'll get shown something later by Troy, where the first thing we're actually going to try and use in the AI and the Copilot for is to identify our bottlenecks as far as resource production goes, based on the run rates and the actual run rates. Because a lot of people can't identify their bottlenecks truly because their run rates are actually wrong in the first place. You know, because the system can quickly identify it, but based on past experience, the Copilot will now start highlighting areas that we didn't think was a bottleneck that is a bottleneck. So we've had a little bit of a play around, and it seems to give us a nice heat map. And like so, when Troy does his little stuff, he's going to show you some of that. It's actually quite, if he doesn't leave it off like he did last time for me. There we go.
It's probably worth pointing out the planning optimisation that Martin has put in Copilot and around starting with purchase orders. So we're starting to see more Copilot in around that area, and it will start to come through the early days.
So the planning optimization is what it does is it takes all your information, chucks it out into a different server, and it can apply different rules. We've also got the ability to decouple all the demands, compile them, and then recouple them back together again. Now, they reckon it runs 100 times quicker. Yes, it does on purchase orders. Multi-level production orders, not quite, but it's at least 10 to 20 times quicker. So it does give you the ability to run full MRP during the day. There's a couple of little things that they're just about to release. One of our sticking points right now is it doesn't respect the time for the freeze time fence. So my understanding is that is due out in the next release. So as soon as that one comes out, shelf life was the other problem we had. They've released that, so it now respects shelf life. As soon as they do the freeze one, we'll pretty much be turning the optimization on all manufacturing customers, because that's our last little hurdle. So Troy will actually go through Copilot. Copilot's a little added AI tool that Microsoft have produced, and it's not like ChatGPT, which Troy will actually go through, because the moment we've talked about AI and GPT, a lot of people said, yeah, it's a great idea. The problem is it trawls the internet, and we know how much crap's in the internet. So surely an AI isn't going to be able to distinguish which is crap and which isn't, so you're going to get wrong results. So Troy will actually go through how Microsoft are actually approaching that. Even things like Edge, you've actually got AI now. All you've got to do is turn it on. Okay then, so, and as far as your scheduling goes, we're hoping that the AI will give us a lot more smarts. Right now we have sequencing inside of this, so we could go from darkest to lightest and so on. What we're hoping to achieve is that, you know, in our demo scenarios that we use for companies that use sequencing, we use a paint company. So we are going from lightest to darkest paint, but we're also going from quarts and gallons. So the sequence right now will be darkest to lightest, quarts, gallons, quarts, gallons, quarts, gallons. Now any scheduler will tell you that isn't what I want. I want to be able to go darkest to lightest, but I want to be able to go quarts, gallons, gallons, quarts, quarts, gallons, gallons, quarts. And it doesn't quite do that yet. So that's the sort of stuff that we're hoping to use Copilot through, which we can then throw more and more advanced stuff at it. Does that kind of answer your question? Yes. Cool. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to firm these, because planning's the first step. So this is effectively the planning taken care of. I'm now going to firm those up. When I firm them up, they are going to go into the production plan, and they are going to show up as scheduled orders because of the way I set it up. Now I can set it up to operation schedule or job schedule. This current environment, I've actually got it set up to job schedule everything. So while that's plugging away there, we've also got a new functionality called a supplier risk assessment, which is running off those planned orders. Now effectively what this does is it will give me, so if I go into here, planned purchase risks. Oh, I'm already on that one. So what it's telling me here is that I've got a whole lot of planned orders. You wouldn't believe, but 10 minutes before we were due to start this, it automatically restarted to update my security updates. Obviously, as soon as I do it, it gives me a new one. All right then, so What we've got here is it tells me the number of planned orders. It also gives me an indication of how my on-time delivery is going and how my in-full delivery is going. Now, down the bottom here is a whole lot of tabs. So I can then do it by sourcing. I could also, if I go over to here and I look at supplier performance rating, this is now ranking my top suppliers. But as usual, in business, we don't like to concentrate on the positives. We like to concentrate on the negatives. So we've got an on-time in full report, which starts off with the worst performers. So as you can see here, I've got a number of vendors down here, number of products. And if I went down and I went and showed, say, the Acme office supply as an example, it will actually show me that this particular item, they're good as gold on. This Surface Pro is a real problem because I've only getting 57%. It also indicates here how bad they are as far as performance goes, and probably because I haven't got a delivery method organised here. But for instance, you'd expect to see ocean always be quite low, and air I'd expect to be a bit higher because I'm paying premium dollar, but boats, as we all know, they go through Singapore and then they get lost. Down here it also indicates what impact it had on what site. So as you can see, I've got two sites. This site here had no impact at all. This one here is 80. But if I went to a different supplier, this one here, as you can see, they are terrible on all materials they supply. So technically I'll be looking for a new supplier. I can also see down here that it has had a big impact on the site that actually uses those products. So you can directly relate the on-time delivery to the site performance. Okay, now smart people would have high stock levels on something that was this bad, for instance. So if I went to, let's pick that one there. As you can see down here, this particular company, even though they're really late on a lot of stuff, it has not impacted on this particular company at all. That's probably because they are carrying decent amount of safety stock. So it's not direct correlation, but it's pretty close. Okay, and this sort of stuff is straight out the box. What we find is Microsoft drop these in. Maybe 3 or 4 months later we get a notification they're going to drop something like this in, but we're usually all over it before they've got there. Now this is a feature that you have to turn on, and right now I don't think there is any documentation for it, but it'll come. Okay, so we go back to our planned orders. They're all firmed up now, and what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to switch over to a production view. So I'm going to go back into favourites and I'm going to look at all production orders. Now what we're going to see here now is I am filtering this by pool. So my pool has been set up which relates to the line that this happens to run on. So I've got multiple robotics lines, I've also got a speaker line, and if I drop that there down, you'll see I've got a different view for speakers versus robots. So this is a very quick way to actually get a schedule. So this schedule is what would be issued to a line. It's got the start date, start time, end date, end time that I've pulled forward. It's also got the delivery date. The delivery date, as far as the schedule is concerned, gets ignored. Because once I've planned something and I've scheduled it, this is the dates that MRP is going to use regardless. And if I clicked onto this one here, I can see I've got a start date of the 29th, an end date of the 29th, starting at 7 AM, finishing at 11:30. It's got a due date of the 18th of the 8th. What it shows me over here on this side panel is I can immediately see I have 11 days delay on this. Now, due to the date and what it is now, and the data's got old since we started the Roadshow, this actually looked quite impressive on number 1, but as time's gone on, the date's gone on. So at this point here, I can immediately start prioritising when I schedule it based on the lateness or what it's related to. So again, you can always go to the view. There's always this explosion because it's everywhere in the system. From here, I can have a look at that, say production. I've got all the material, so that is an issue. What is it going to affect? I can go up and I can see, okay, that's for demand forecasting only. Technically, if I am a X stock type of company, this could impact me. But if I was predominantly doing sales orders and I have a lot of stock, what I would be doing as a planner is I'd be zapping through this and I'd be having a look at the relationship between the production orders and the sales orders, and I'd be prioritising sales orders. Now the way you can do that is if I go into the workspace, so there's a production floor workspace. Now inside of this workspace, it will actually give me a breakdown. So what I've got here is I've got jobs to complete. I've got jobs with deviations. So this jobs with deviations is showing me when I've gone over. So here's a good example. So I've got a production order that I've gone and run, and I've got a slight hours deviation, like 26,000%. So if I have a look at this, what I'm going to notice here is that this job should have taken 0.2 of an hour, and it actually took 87.8 hours. So slightly large variation, so I'll be asking questions on that, but what it does is it gives you the ability to actually decide what type of variations you're willing to accept. So when I go calculate on here, it actually gives me thresholds: quantity, hours and consumption. So I can now very quickly narrow down the production orders that have taken place and then analyse what went wrong with those production orders very quickly. The other thing from here too is that I've now got my plan in place, and if I just go into all production orders again just to show. So what I've got here is I've got a couple of orders started, I've got one released, the rest of them are scheduled, and I may decide I want to reschedule some of this stuff, so maybe I go out here and I pick those last 3 orders there, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to reschedule those. Inside of job scheduling, we've actually got a number of tools. So I don't know if you can see that, but effectively we have multiple ways we can actually schedule jobs. Right? And by picking one of those ways, it will actually tell me. So I can say I want to schedule forward from a scheduling date, for instance. And I'm going to say that scheduling date is going to be the 1st of next month. So if I click into, if I go to date to begin with, bring it to the right year, and then I go over to the next month, and let's go and say, all right, I want a break in the factory, so I'm going to schedule these forward from the 11th using finite capacity. Over here, I've got a sorting option. So I can sort by ascending, descending, which really applies if you have multi-level bombs. So it will start at the lowest level, schedule that first and schedule forward from there. Descending does it completely the other way around till you hit today's date, and then it will always turn around and schedule forward. Okay, schedule status. Stats will actually have a look at the status of the order, so always make sure that the started ones go first, then the release ones, and then the schedule ones. And then priority by delivery date. Now if you select priority by delivery date, every production order has a little field called priority. You can put a number against it. When you go and plan this, it will actually plan according to that number. So it's a planner's way of intervening. So if I go and hit that, and then I go OK. And now tottles off and schedules just those orders for me. And if I hit refresh on here, what we're going to see here now is the start date, 7 AM in the morning, 9:18. This one here starting at 9 o'clock, finishing at 11:24. This one here is 11 o'clock and finishing at 12. Now if I just took those 3, we had a very quick look at them. Because they're job scheduled, you can see them on a Gantt chart. So this is a Gantt chart of everything that actually needs to be made. So I can either look at it at a resource view or an order view. Right now I'm seeing all the orders. So if I go down to one of these ones here and I open it up, what I can see here is I've got assembly. Let's pull that down a bit. I've got my assembly being done here, my testing and my packing. Now what I've done here is that when I've gone and set these up, I've given it an overlap. So 10 units into the assembly, I can start testing. 10 units into the testing, I can start packing. The total elapsed time is much shorter. Now traditionally it would go testing, then you assembly, then you move on to testing and so on. That just doesn't work for most environments these days. Now from a Gantt chart I can also move stuff around. Now I've decided that I need to test this over here. And it's not going to let me because the dates are all up the wop. There we go. So maybe if I move it forward a little. There we go. No. Let me pick another order. Here we go. Let's pick one of these ones here. So I'm going to take the packing out here. Nope, it's not going to let me. Okay, we'll do it a different way. Okay, so get rid of those. Back out of here. And I'm going to change it to a resource view. So here is my resource view, and what this is all the orders combined, and if I want to expand one of these, you'll see there's all my orders that are being done and the dates when they're actually being done. Now from here, it's also, this bar across the top here indicates to me whether my capacity is okay or not. So if I go and bring up the speaker test rig operator, as an example, and let's go move one of the test rig operators around. Now notice up the top there how it's suddenly going red. That's an indication that I'm overloading. It doesn't stop me from overloading, it's just an indication that it is overloading. Now I've gone and done that, I can actually right click and I can go schedule round job. What that's going to do is it will bring the other jobs, and as you see these reds suddenly appear down the bottom here. Okay, so if I took this job here, for instance, and I moved it back to there, okay, and then I can schedule around job again, and it brings everything else online as well. And you can move anything you actually want around to different angles. Now, the problem at the moment is that these dark days are supposed to be my non-working calendars, but they're obviously not. Hence, I can put stuff in there, and it chucks it out there too. So it takes into account non-working time as well. Schedule around job. Okay, so you can very quickly reorganize stuff on a Gantt chart, but the reality is you've got a Gantt chart and you've got 5 or 6 workstations, and you've got multiple orders per day, 120 orders a day. To actually schedule them manually on a Gantt chart just doesn't cut the mustard. Now we have got a company at the moment we've just done as a mining company, and their jobs take about 3 months to do. Gantt chart works great for them. They've got 4 orders a day. And they move stuff around all over the place. They can switch machines. There's a whole lot of stuff. So another myth is that you can't switch machines. So if I go onto here and I decide I want to move that, okay, so what I can do here is I can actually look at this and I can say, show me additional resources. I can now switch this job to any one of these resources instantly. Now, the only reason I get this sort of system in place is the first thing I point out as soon as I do a demo, when planners are in the room, is planner is God. A planner can do whatever the hell they want. It will not stop them. But what I don't like to hear is people ring out, oh, it moved all my schedule around. MRP does not touch real orders. It cannot move a real order. Only a planner can. So when I hear it moved all my real stuff over here, did you hit the scheduling button? No. Yeah, right. It's impossible. There's nothing in the code. It only works for planned orders. So a lot of people have got to realise that anything that goes wrong with a sequenced order like this, like you've overloaded a capacity, is because a planner made that choice. Okay, so once you're happy with the plan, so from here I can also, last thing I want to check is I would need to check the resourcing. So at any point I can go to any of the resources, or a group of resources if I want to do it that way. So I'm going to go and choose the test rig. As an example, I can go into their capacity load. This is actually quite handy to have a quick gander over, see how we're going. So there's my resource, there's my looking out for the next 50 days, there's my job reservation, there's my capacity, this is my available capacity down here. Down here it tells me what's consuming it, and as I go out further you'll see it switches from job orders, production, over to planned orders. Also from here, if you run an SNOP, most people prefer this option. So this is a way of actually looking at the capacity load graphically. So what we've got here is I've got the blue lines are the capacity, planned orders and production orders. Now I can toggle off these. So what I'm looking at here is the pure load. Now quite often people won't actually use their human resources as a constraint because they can go and get temp labour in. So I've got a company that 30% of their workforce is temp. So what we do there is that we actually have all our loading, we have an infinite capacity for workers, and what it does is it gives them the total hours for a week they require. They know the number of workers they have, the balance is they know they've got to get temps in. Right? And they're even getting to the point now where they're actually starting to break it down by day. You know, I need 3 hours of a temp on this day, I need 2 hours, it doesn't quite work that way. So what they're doing is they're rescheduling accordingly, and so they're leaving like 6 to 8 hour blocks where a temp labour can come in and do the job. It is basic assembly, it's not a great deal of experience required. And they also do something else which I'm going to get to very shortly as well. Okay, now when I'm looking at this, I can also look at multiple machines at once. So if I go to that, I go to a criteria. In here I can say, okay, then I want to go all the way down to the packing workers. Problem here is that the more machines you chuck on, the more busy the screen gets. But it has the same sort of thing. So I could take the capacity off that, capacity off that, capacity off that, capacity off that, and capacity off that. I'm now looking at my pure load. and capacity off that. So there we go. So that is my pure load across that selection of resources. So like I said, S&OP is very handy because it's very visual. You can very quickly highlight one line and it shows you everything else that's related to it. Okay, so you can make decisions straight away. All right, so you've now decided that I've got all this, I've now got a fixed schedule, I now fire that down to the plant. When I fire it down to the plant, at some stage I'm going to need to release those orders. Now, what we've got here is we've got a production workspace. This date here, 28th for the 8th, it says I have 4 production orders I need to release them by. I can switch that to the end of the month, and that number should change. Thank God for that. Okay, so it's now saying I've got 10 orders to release. Now, if you are using advanced warehousing, when you release, that's what creates the work on the guns. It will create work on the gun, tell you to go and pick it from a warehouse. We usually set it up for resource consumption, so the warehouse then gets told to pick these products and take them to a particular resource. Based on the logic that you want to apply, I may set up my rules to say, if I'm going to go and pick sugar, always take a whole pallet to the resource, not just the 25.6 kilos I actually require. So you can set all that up in the advanced warehousing and decide which way you actually want to do it, but we're finding more and more people are now delivering the whole pallet. They take off what they need, they then transfer back. Pharmaceutical industry, we take everything onto a pallet. All gets picked onto a pallet, gets shrink wrapped. That pallet then goes into the room. On the way into the room, they weigh the pallet. The pallet must equal what the total weight of what they've picked is to make sure they haven't lost anything. They then consume everything to that production order. At the end of the run, they clean the room out, labels everything. They put everything that's remaining back on a pallet. They then scan everything back and they do a reverse pick list and send that back to the warehouse. The difference between what went in the room and what went back out the room is what they've consumed on the production order. Because they've got to be able to explain every ounce of pseudoephedrine, or every gram of pseudoephedrine they've used. You can't say, oh yeah, we lost a bag somewhere. Doesn't work like that anymore. Gone are the good old days. So there's multiple techniques you can actually do that in. So if we go into here, the reason why I pulled you up to this screen here is that this will give me my final chance. So as I look down here, I can see ticks against all this. This tells me that the materials are all available. So if I just expand that, there we go, ready to release. Down the bottom here, it lists the materials, it lists the on stock. If I get down to here, there's a question mark. The question mark means that order has been released since I ran MRP last. Simple button, hit the check availability. What's that done is it actually went through and it did a little mini MRP run just for that particular order. Down the bottom here, I can see a couple of triangles. These triangles are indicating to me that I have a problem with the materials. So if I look down here, I can see, okay then, I have a required quantity of 80. It's telling me here that I've only settled 43, which means I'm missing 47. Now, I may decide, okay then, how many of these could I actually make? Now I can see it from there, but if I go up to here, there's a button called a Max Report as Finish button. When you hit the Max Report as Finish, it will actually tell you, I can actually make 47. And this is why I can only make 47. So looking at that, I can very quickly ascertain, this is my problem child. If I can get a few more of these in, I can make 423 because I've got enough materials to do all that. So this Max Report as Finish is actually very handy. At this point here, I could then decide I don't want to release the 80, and I could actually update the order, and I could change that order to 47 and release it, or I could not release it at all. Either way. Now if I go back up the top here, okay, and what I've decided to do is I'm going to release these two orders here. So 80 and 83. No, I won't. In fact, I'm going to release 80, and I'm going to release 89 and 90. Now, when I release them, what that is actually going to do is this is a production floor device. Inside the production floor device, it will actually show me any orders that are released. So if I just log in, what I can see here is I can see 82 and 81 are the only two orders, and 86. Someone else is in the system at the same time. Okay, so there's 3 orders there that are currently released. Now, if I go into here and I release these ones here, which is 89 and 90, I won't worry about that one because there's already some of those in there, and I go release. This will create work if I had advanced warehousing. If I don't have advanced warehousing, it doesn't create work. and what it will do is it will now appear on the screen. So while that's refreshing, I can go back to here and we have a look at our schedule. So if I go back to my all production orders and we look at our schedule view, we should see a couple more orders released. And you can see here, there are my orders released, 90. And if I knew that order, or I'm producing paperwork, I can then go into the production floor execution system. Little search bar up here, I can put in the order. When I put in the order, it just shows me that one order. Right, I can see all the operations to that order. The other thing I can see is that when I go and click onto it, it gives me details if there was any previous operations. So there's no previous operations on that one there. As you can see down here, it tells me if there is previous operations and what status they're actually up to. Okay, so looking at this screen here, I can very quickly see where we are. The other thing it also shows me is it shows me instructions. So in here, I can actually see the claw. Now, food companies, we've got a number of food companies, and there's one I mentioned before about the simple assembly. They're actually a food company, and they get temps in to pack the meat. And so they slice all the meat, and then when the temps come in, they go to this terminal, they hit start, immediately it says you've got to watch a video. And they click a video, and there's a 2-minute video they have to watch, and it basically explains you get the fat bits first, you put them at the bottom of the tray, and then you overlay the lean pieces over the top of it. Hence, they always look exactly the same when you see them in the supermarket, and you know as soon as you take that first one off, you're going to be disappointed, right? By design. But by doing that, it also speeds up the training, right? A lot of people, a lot of the temps they've got, English isn't their first language. They tried induction programs, it just didn't work. They found the video, you show somebody a video or something, they pick it up like that. So we can hold videos as well. Okay. Now, we can also enforce it so they have to click on and play the video. We haven't quite worked out a way yet to make sure they watch it. Now, somebody in this room at the back there said, well, why don't you look at facial recognition? Then you can see how many seconds their eyes stayed on the video for. And as they look away, a little alarm bell goes off. Technically, we could do that. Okay then, so if I go out of there again, I take this off. This is usually my start point. I open up the schedule. Right. If I am working on a particular machine, I can then go into here and I could actually filter this by the machine I'm working on. So all I want to see is the speaker assembly. As an example, I can go into here and I can pick my resource, and I'm going to go speaker assembly. Can't remember which worker. Let's give this a crack. So what I'm doing here is I've now filtered just by the speaker assembly. So I'm at the speaker assembly workbench. These are my jobs. I can see these two here are paused. This one here is about to start. Right, just by the little indicators here. Right, now if I went and picked that one there, in fact let's go and pick this one here. No, I'm not going to do that actually. I'm going to take that filter off because I need to pick the first operation to show what I want to next. So I'm going to remove that filter. Okay, so I'm now seeing all jobs. I'm going to go into that job 82 and I'm going to start it. Now when I go and start this job, how many do I want to start? I can choose to start the whole lot, or I can just choose to start a quantity against that job. Okay, so I go and hit start. What it's going to do here now, everything going well, it should now open up the pick list. That was lucky. Okay, so what it's gone and done is it's gone and created me a pick list. And if I go and open up the lines on that pick list, it's going to tell me technically what I should be seeing sitting at my feet on the floor, because everything here is a prod. It's all sitting in the location floor because I'm lazy, so I just called floor a location. And what it does here is it lists all the components that should be sitting there, and it's up to me at this point if I want to decide to issue all those materials or not. If I do, I can just hit post. If I have batch controlled items, it would also list all the batch numbers that I'm supposed to have. If you're using scanners and your batch is critical, you probably won't use a pick list, you'll probably use scanners, and you would actually scan each batch into the job as you tip it into the bucket. Okay, so there's my pick lists. Get out of my pick list, it now returns me. Now, you'll notice on here there's no menus. I can't see anything else at D365. This is designed to be on a standalone tablet. There is no menus. I cannot go to any other D365 menu at all. Right, that again is by design. Now, our mining company, they just rolled out 127 tablets 2 weeks ago. Now, their biggest problem was is they had tablets and they also had timesheeting. They wanted to combine the two. So they came up with an idea of, okay, then I'll tell you what we can do. We want to use these tablets for our warehouse guys. And we said, well, there's no production orders. Well, we've got to work out some way of doing it. So what we did is we created activities. Now, activities have got their own posting profiles. So what we've got here is we've got our normal stuff for breakdowns and that sort of stuff. We've also got light duties, supervision time, tool store duties, warehouse duties. So as a user, I would log onto a tablet, because like I said, they've got 127 of these tablets lying around. I click onto that, and what it will do now is it starts recording the time, and it's now moaning at me because I've actually started a job, so I'm just going to pause that job. So I've gone and paused that job. It asks me if I want to issue any extra materials when I pause that job, so I'm going to say no, and it does that every step. Come on. Well, eventually. There we go. All right, so it now knows that I'm working on an indirect activity. I go away, I do it. When I come back, I then log back in again. It brings up this screen. I can then stop my indirect activity. What that's done in the background is it's created a timesheet for me working in the warehouse. Time I started, time I finished. Okay, so we are using it for a combination of both things. Okay, last thing I'm going to show you on here is that when you go to start a job, you can also look at the specs of the machine. So if you're running IoT devices on your machinery, I can go into here and I can see the power going through it, I can see the current machine temperature, and I can see the run hours. The other thing I can do from here is if there is a, say that temperature was supposed to be 120, I know there's a problem, I can request a maintenance order directly from here. Right? As soon as I create that, it will give me a works order number. It will then fire away to the maintenance workspace, and the guys will get in their little trucks and they're going to come zooming along and they're going to repair my machine in some fantasy world. But it's sitting there and I now got to sit there and wait for them to come along. The other thing I can do is while I'm doing that, I can also register downtime. So against this machine I can say, well, actually it was an hour ago, so I'll go backwards, that would help. Right, so between 10:03 to 11:03 I had some downtime. What kind of downtime was it? Okay then, service maintenance. And okay, these are all user defined. You can have as many of those as you want. We do recommend don't have more than a page worth. We do have somebody that's got about 8 pages worth. And what happens is they get sick of clicking to the next page, so they just pick the first ones they come across. There we go, and I go OK. Right, and as you can see here, it's now registered the downtime. What that is though, is it's keeping track of all the downtime for this machine, which later on when I want a new machine, I can moan and they say, where's your proof? And you go, well, here we go. Here's an actual log of all the breakdowns we've had in the last 30 days. Okay then. Right, I'm getting the hard word. So any questions? Otherwise, I'm done. Nope, all good. Over to you, Tom.
Cool. I'm going to grab the microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do now is go into the warehousing, and here's our order that we released earlier, we created earlier through the online portal. And why is that not letting me do anything? I'll just refresh my screen. Okay, so we're going to release this order to the warehouse. And I'm using advanced warehousing, so it's going to create a load and it's going to create work. And I'll do that now. So we'll release it to the warehouse. And it's going to pop up. And it's now going to go off and create some work for the warehouse. Now I have my warehouse mobile device here, And I've set it up with a standard menu that we create, but this can be customized to suit your operation, however it would be. And I've got an outbound process here. And one of the things I'm going to show you in this process is the new label printing function that we have within D365. So we have what we call an SEC label functionality, where we can create an SEC label. If you're dealing with people that require an ASN for inbound orders, they all require that sort of label stuck on their product. And I'm going to show how we can print that label as well as print a shipping label now at the same time. And if I go into my sales order work, if everything's worked correctly, we should see 2 orders there to be picked, which is my 2 orders that we had in the background. So if we go back here and back into my sales orders, that should represent my 2 orders that are sitting there to be picked. Okay, so we're going to go and pick this first one. And the way I've set this up is I've set it up in such a way that it tells you what you're going to pick first and the quantity, and then we're going to pick it and put it to a staging location. And at that staging location, it can be wrapped and, you know, labels stuck on it, and then picked from that staging location to the truck. So it's like a 2-stage process. One guy can be in the warehouse picking stock, just bringing it to that staging location. Someone else takes over wrapping it. He goes off and carries on picking. So I'm going to go into this item here, and I'm going to put in the license plate, and it's essentially the same as me scanning that LP at the top, because that's what's sitting in the warehouse. Okay, so there's my LP, and whilst that's happening, I'm going to bring up my label printer. This is my virtual label printer. That's the same as if you've got a label printer within your warehouse. I'm going to hit enter, and it's confirming that's what I'm picking. Yes. And you will see 2 labels pop up here in a minute. And the first one is a shipping label. So you can see here I've got the customer's details, the load that it's on. This is actually the customer address and a QR code, the run and everything. We never used to be able to do that in D365. We can now create custom labels from anywhere within the system and use any data within D365. So you can virtually go and create a custom label anywhere in the system. And this is new in 10.0.35. And we can reference any of the fields. And there's our shipping label, SEC label. Okay, and we're picking up there's our license plate, and that's the same license plate as what it created before. And then if I just go back now to my label, my picking, and I'm going to confirm my put location. Now that's putting it to the staging location, and the guy can go off and now pick the next piece of work. The other guy will pick up this piece of work, and he'll go into the sales loading, and there's that piece of work, and that's the license plate that we were looking at before that came up on the screen. And it's saying you're going to pick it up from that staging location, and there's the license plate, which is that same license plate there. And we're going to go OK. And now it's going to confirm that you're putting it to the outbound location. So I've got this set up as an outbound truck location. And we're going to go OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm now going to add these 2 orders to a truck that's going to go off and deliver them in a delivery run. So I'm going to go into a program called Route Control, which is the ISV that we're demonstrating here. And in this run, I'm going to build a route plan for the delivery of these products. Now, everything you see that I'm going to show today can be automated. I'm just going to do it step by step so you can see what it will do. But based on the customer, the direction that it's going to be delivered, I can have the system automatically put it onto a run. So I'm going to call this run number 2. Okay, and the destination category, I'm calling it as being south. Now, this program can also do pickups. So if you've got a truck and you want to send it out to go and do a pickup and then bring it back to the warehouse, This can be arranged if you're doing a sales order, delivery obviously, or a transfer between warehouses. So if you're going to put some stock and you want to move it from that warehouse to the other, you can load this onto a truck and follow it all the way through. So in this case, we're just going to do sales orders. We've got our departure warehouse and arrival warehouse, and we're going to group it by the requested ship date, being today. But I could plan this for, you know, whatever the ship date. It could be for tomorrow, it could be in a week's time. I can create these plans. So I'm going to go OK. And that's going to go off and it's going to create a route. So we're going to have a look at this route plan. And here it is here, this top one. And what it's done is it's gone and had a look at the sales orders that are in there, and it's found that there are 2 sales orders there waiting to be shipped, to be put onto a run. And there are the 2 orders. And if I go back here, and I'm now going to add them to a vehicle. And as I say, this can be all automated. And I'm going to now save that and generate my route. So essentially what I'm saying is that those 2 orders are going on a truck. This truck is going on a south direction or wherever, delivery run number 2. And now I'm going to go and have a look at my route. And there it is. Now what this will do is this will look at the customer's address and it will say, right, this is the most efficient way to deliver this order. And it will sequence the 2 customers in that order. And it will also tell me how much time it will take to deliver these orders. So allowing for unloading and loading at the customer's premises, it will calculate the driving time, the loading time, and the total time that the truck's going to be on the run. And if you had the weights and dimensions put against the item, it will actually tell you the total load capacity on the vehicle.
Does it have rules associated with that route though?
Correct. Yep.
And how flexible are those rules?
Actually very flexible. Yeah.
No left-hand turns, no school.
That has already come up in a conversation. But so one of the things I'm going to show you. So this uses a program called Here Maps, and Here Maps is a heavy truck navigation system, and it looks at where trucks can and can't go, as per weights and all that sort of stuff. And you can see here what I'm showing you here is actually the run already mapped out. So within D365, it's actually showing you where that run that we just did, that route, and the delivery points, and it's calculated the most efficient way to go and deliver this order.
Is it using Here's optimization?
Yep.
Okay, so that'll do 80% of what we need.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to release this, okay, and release it to the truck and say, right, we're good to go. And once this releases, I'm going to bring up right. So now I'm going to go and look at route tracking. So now that those 2 orders have been released to the truck, I can now have a look at my trucks on this map. So see this map here, that little dot there as you see there is that vehicle there. Okay, and it actually will move on the map. So as the truck leaves the depot and starts driving, it will update and show where that truck is on the run. And if you've got multiple vehicles on that run, so in this particular case, see how we've got 2 orders here, they're actually the same truck. But if I had 2 different trucks, it would show 2 different dots on the screen, and they will actually move as they're going around the maps.
Does that create an audit trail? Or, stop line?
Yep. Well, I'm about to show you that. So what happens now is that has now been released to a mobile device. And if I just refresh the screen, you'll see now, here's my 2 deliveries. So that's the first one and the second one. And these are scheduled to be done. So in the vehicle, we can have a tablet and like a navigation TomTom, so that you can have all in one product, or you can have 2 separate ones. A separate one to do just your sign on glass and proof of delivery, and then your vehicle navigation one, or you can have one that does both. In this case here for the demo, I'm doing both. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to load this route. And now it's saying to me, here are my 2 deliveries. Stop number 1 and stop number 2. I'm going to go into stop number 1. Well, first I'm going to actually navigate to the very first one and start my navigation. And it will give me turn-by-turn navigation. Now, this is where it gets a little bit upset because I'm nowhere near my departure point. So it's going to try and tell me that, hey, wait a minute, you've got to go and drive to the departure point and before you can actually even start. But I'm going to just go and say I'm going to deliver my order. And I'm going to see Bob. And I'm going to do sign on glass. And I'm also going to take a photo of where I've delivered the goods. So I can take a photo. And then I can go confirm delivery. Now, some of the other features that this can do is from this tablet, I can ring the customer and there's a default number already defined against that customer, so they don't have to go looking for a number to ring them. And in some cases, the warehouse guy might have a mobile number that's separate to the rest of the operation, so he can ring that number directly. He can also send an SMS message from there and say, hey, I'm out the back, where are you? And it's all defined against the customer record.
If there's a breakdown of the truck, can you transfer that to another truck?
Yes. Yep.
Him himself? Or
It can be moved from within the back end here. Yeah. What I haven't shown you is back here is we have a customer portal. So as I'm the customer, and if I log in, you can see here, here's my 2 orders, and I can actually see this as a customer that these orders are on their way to be delivered. Okay, and they can actually go in and see that it's on its way. Now I'll just go back to my device here, and I'm going to confirm the delivery and go confirm. Now straight away it's come up and said, hey, wait a minute, you're nowhere near where you're supposed to be delivering these goods. So it's tracking all that information and recording it against the delivery. So I'm going to go ignore and proceed. And then I'm now going to move on to my next delivery. So next stop. And I'm just going to quickly do this so that I can demonstrate what is going to happen. Okay, and deliver. And if he has a problem, he can, and say the order, he can't deliver it because the place is closed or something, he can do an attempt delivery and it will replicate that information back into the back end. And the other thing is, see that delivery that we've just done? That will reflect here and update down here and say that it's been delivered. Very shortly. The internet's a bit slow. But let me just finish this one off. And we'll do our final confirm delivery. And then it will actually navigate the truck driver all the way back to where he started from. As I said, in the back end here, if I refresh this, it will show that the order has been delivered, and it will give the customer a POD that they can download themselves. And also that same POD will be represented back in Dynamics F&O against the sales order. So the internet is very slow here. We'll go and see if we can see the POD. We'll refresh this screen. There you go. You can see those 2 orders now are reflecting that they're complete. And if I go into the sales orders, and if I refresh this one, right, let's try again. into this order. Now the other order that's disappeared off my screen, I have it automatically set up to post the delivery note to the customer and also to invoice it out straight away. So as soon as the order is completely picked and shipped, it will actually automatically post the delivery note. But against this sales order, if I go into related route data, I can actually see here's the completed delivery, and I can actually download and view the POD document. Eventually. I'm not having good luck with this
Does it
today.
also have the opportunity to, say you go to a customer site and they all of a sudden say, oh, I want you to take this as well?
As a return?
No, well, our business isn't returns.
Yeah, yeah.
So for us, it's an extra order.
Yep.
Can it have that ability to take an order on the fly right there?
So no, the driver, at this point in time in the system, the driver doesn't have that ability.
Right.
But, you know, one thing about this product is it is actually developed in Australia, and the guys are based in Melbourne, and I know for a fact they're doing it for a very big aluminium company distributor in Australia, and they've developed extensions for them that they require. So these guys are quite open to, you know, supporting requirements that a customer might have. So, and you can see there's the POD. And this can be set up to automatically email your accounts department so that you know that you've got the POD, or the customer's accounts department, so that they've got the POD straight away. So is there any questions about that? That's the end of my presentation.